You going, Ezra?
Well,
Are you?
Ezra Levant here.
Surprise.
I'm in Toronto, which is not a good place to be if you are on a panel called the Buffalo. But I am offset by my Western friends. Our chief reporter, Sheila Gunn Reid, flying the flag from Northern Alberta. Lise, Merle from the great province of Saskatchewan, and Cory Morgan, who fights in so many interesting ways. And I don't think Cory is a guy who picks fights, but he takes a stand, and fights come to a man who takes a stand. And I'm sure later on today we'll hear a little bit more about it. So thank you guys for letting me traipse through here. I am a Westerner by birth, and I consider myself a Westerner, but you guys are the real deal, and thank you for letting me come along for the day.
Oh, thanks, boss. You want me to tell everybody what we're doing around here and then we'll get into the show?
Sure.
I think I should, because you seem a little rusty. For those of you who are new here, this is the Rebel Roundup. It's our daily news and opinion show, but on Wednesdays, it's Western Wednesdays, and we host something called the Buffalo Panel, where you have interesting news makers and thought leaders in Western independence or facing Westerners. If you want to get involved in the show, you're watching us on Rumble. That's a great free speech platform. You can leave a Rumble rant. That's our paid chat over there. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a paid chat called a super chat. If you miss a live version of the show, you can leave a paid comment called a super thanks. And we invite you to do this for us because, as you know, we'll never take a penny from the government to do the work that we do around here. How could we call ourselves independent journalists if we did? So those are the rules. If your chats are over the $5 US cutoff, it's obligatory. We're reading them on air. So get to it. And Ezra, I'll let you lead since you're in studio and you, well, you're the boss. So let's get into it.
There's a couple of things on my mind. I had the opportunity yesterday to talk to the U.S. ambassador for half an hour on the show. And in fact, we're going to release the video on YouTube today. Last night was on my show, which is behind a paywall. And one of the questions I asked, Olivia, do you have this clip ready? Is I asked about a report in the New York Times that Mark Carney raised the possibility of the Keystone XL in the trade negotiations. And you would think that's a great thing because, I mean, the Keystone XL now is a different name and it's slightly different, but it is still bringing in, I don't know, 25 or $30 billion a year worth of revenue for, I mean, you have 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 barrels of oil a day. You can do the math on that yourself. And so I thought, oh, wow, this is sort of amazing. But no, here, put it up. If you have the New York Times tweet from Peter McCaffrey, basically, Carney said, we'll give you the Keystone XL pipeline only if you give us certain concessions. So he was implying that Keystone XL was not something Canada wanted, but it was something that Canada would grudgingly give the United States if they made other concessions. Here, let me read from the New York Times. Mr. Carney had brought up the idea of reviving it during his first White House visit last year. Officials said that when Mr. Carney and Mr. Trump spoke by phone early in the week, Mr. Carney again mentioned the pipeline, saying that for the right deal on tariffs, Canada would consider bringing its side of the pipeline back to life. Mr. Trump was thrilled, a former official briefed on the talk said, but by Friday, the Keystone XL pipeline idea was buried again. A U.S. official said that in the last few hours, Canada had expressed reluctance to cooperate. A Canadian official said that the trade deal on offer was not good enough to make the pipeline make sense. Hang on one second here. This is a completely privately funded pipeline. There's no government money in it. The route has already been approved. There's no regulatory or environmental hurdles. There's no land claim issues. How could it not make sense? But the whole framing was, we'll grudgingly do you this favor if you give us other things. And if you won't give us our list of demands, we will not give you the Keystone. We will not give you the Keystone XL. That is $30 billion a year. That's thousands of jobs, not just in the construction of the pipeline, but in filling it with oil. Mm-hmm. To him, that was a negative, a burden, a concession. He didn't go in wanting it, asking for it, lobbying for it. He said no. The New York Times published that saying he said no. I asked the ambassador about that yesterday. Do we have that clip, Olivia? Here it is. One thing I learned, I think it was in the New York Times, came as a surprise to me, is that Prime Minister Carney offered to the U.S. side to revive the Keystone XL pipeline. I think it has a different name now, and this was sort of an offer to the U.S. asking for some sort of concessions in return. Can you speak to this? Because I mean, I'm from Alberta originally, and the idea that Alberta would only get that pipeline if a favor was done to Mark Carney, as opposed to him asking for this, trying to get this. It seems rather upside down. Can you shed any light on how the conversation around that pipeline went? Because it sounds like Carney was reluctant.
Well, I mean, again, I was not in the room, okay? And it wouldn't be my role, even if I was, to talk specifically about how the negotiations went or whatever. You know, there is no secret, okay? This was talked about way back in October, that the Canadian-U.S. relationship, one of the strong features was that you have oil, we process oil, we process it into all types of byproducts and those types of things. I really, can't shed any light other than it was something that we were interested in. I think everybody knows that we're interested in getting more oil. Again, it will be the Prime Minister that will have to designate or put some context into it as to how shipping more oil into the United States from Canada, would be viewed by the federal government. That's not us.
In other words, Carney can answer that, not me. Do you think a single regime journalist has asked Carney about that? That was a $30 billion a year revenue project, completely privately paid, already permitted and licensed. And Carney says, no, it's not worth it on our side to proceed. What do you make of that?
From my perspective, this is a complete and total affront to Alberta and Danielle Smith. We have said from the very beginning, we are staying out of your stupid little trade war, Doug Ford and Mark Carney. And yet, Mark Carney dragged us into this. This was a pipeline that Trump has already approved once. Justin Trudeau didn't fight for it under Biden. It wasn't fought for under Obama. The idea that the Keystone XL should be dragged into this mess when it wasn't even a part of it, it shouldn't be used as a bargaining chip. Albertans and our premier have all said we do not want our oil and gas used as a bargaining chip in this mess. And somehow Mark Carney still did that. And he's getting away with it, with the full support of Jason Kenney, might I add.
Yeah, not just that, but the total, I mean, you would think that we're talking about this monstrous $35 billion taxpayer investment in some pipeline through BC that you just know will be blocked by a judge saying, oh, I've discovered a new Indigenous title to this land. So that is apparently interesting, a $35 billion taxpayer sinkhole. But this completely privately financed pipeline that's ready to rock and that is full of customers, Southbow, which I think is the name of the company that owns it now, went to market. They called it open season, and they have 20-year commitments to fill that thing. Carney doesn't want that developed because he can't take credit for it. He can't steer contracts to Brookfield. What do you think of that?
Well, as far as this pipeline goes, it's just, from anybody rational looking at it, it's nothing but win. There is a difficult trade conflict going on right now. This be one of the things, doesn't cost Carney anything to actually soothe the relationship. I mean, it brings more revenue into Canada, brings revenue and jobs into Alberta. We've been hearing that the Trans Mountain expansion is already at capacity with outgoing oil exports. It's just, it goes back to that ideology that the Liberals at best grudgingly will allow any further development of oil and gas. They have a deep seated opposition to that resource in general. And he doesn't look at it as an asset to be developed. He does look at it as a carrot to try and dangle, saying, oh, well, we'll cut you off from spending billions of dollars on one of our domestic industries. It's just insane, but it's not that unexpected, unfortunately.
Makes me very mad. Lise, what do you think of Jason Kenney joining the bizarre chorus of socialists in Alberta, Rachel Notley, Nenshi, and saying, yes, our oil exports to the States should be weaponized. We should use them to blackmail Donald Trump. Does that work, by the way? You think that's going to work? I mean, and Kenney uses the pronoun we. We should do. Who's we? Do you have a frog in your pocket or something? Like you're not a we anymore. You were kicked out by, right on the screen there are two Albertans who were repudiated, rejected, and thrown out by their own people. And he's saying we should do this. Who's we? Who's your client? Who's your paying client?
Exactly this. The way that Jason Kenney has been force teaming with other, former premiers or current premiers, whether it be Rachel Notley, whether it be Scott Moe, reeks of a desperate attempt of a washed up politician who wants to remain relevant. And are we really expected to trust the COVID bros who made all of the mistakes not a handful of years ago and who are doing their level best to blow up this our diplomatic relationship with our friends in the United States? They're always going to be our neighbors. And this kind of, the promotion of this kind of anti-American sentiment it could be really damaging. And Jason Kenney should not be trusted, I don't think. What do you think?
I don't know who this exactly appeals to, except the anti-American liberals. The NDP are already wildly federalist. You don't need to go out and convince them. Jason Kenney's the guy they trot out to convince the 50% of conservative voters in this province that they need to stay within Confederation. It ain't going to work. These two job killers combined wiped out 400,000 jobs. I pulled the numbers before we came on air. During COVID, Alberta lost, I think it was 117,000 jobs for a time. Rachel Notley responsible during her term for 183,000 jobs that just vaporized thanks to her weird commie climate policies in collusion with the federal liberals. If these two are the ones that they're trotting out to make the business case, I don't know who they think they're convincing, because we are not hard of remembering. If they're making the business case, they should have made it when they were in office, when they had the opportunity, but instead the two of them attacked businesses. They don't get to rebrand now.
No, truly, because if they're interested in nation building projects, we hear every day about the big and important and weighty things that they're doing. This is the definition of a nation building project. And it doesn't seem to be important to them. It just goes to show that the Western provinces have every right to want to explore other options. Because leaving it up to the feds, leaving it up to Mark Carney, the economic genius that he is, look where it got us.
Well, and they say, Jason Kenney has said, Alberta's oil should be on the table as a bargaining chip. This gives the NDP exactly what they want. They've sought for years to put an end to Alberta's oil and gas sector. This is exactly how they do it.
Well, this changes the political dynamic in Alberta too. Kenney has at least carefully never really been critical of his successor in Premier Smith. He's stayed out of that. He's been activating himself politically. He's obviously got some ambitions. People are thinking maybe he's looking federal, but now he's come out in an outright contrarian position to Premier Smith, who came out clearly and said, our oil is not on the table. And now we've got a former Premier Kenney hand in hand with Rachel Notley of the NDP, representing a party that is in opposition to the sitting government right now and taking a position opposed to our premier. That's a big step and a big change on where things are sitting right now. And I suspect Mr. Kenney's going to end up regretting this.
Yep.
I think Danielle Smith has held her fire on Jason Kenney in a number of ways. It's a tradition, a convention, you might even say, that when one leader loses to another, there's a bit of a transition period where they put aside partisanship. Like there was a period of time overlapping when Stephen Harper lost, but Trudeau had not yet been sworn in. So he was called the Prime Minister designate, but Harper was still the Prime Minister. And in that interregnum, Harper did what you would expect. And by the way, they have this in the United States, it's very much formalized. They call it a transition team to help the new folks get up to speed with the files, to start their private briefings right away. Jason Kenney did not do any of that. He refused to participate in a transition for the new Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith. He refused. And I can understand having a personal grudge. That's life. You know, you lose an election, you're mad, you think you're superior, you're furious with the voters because they didn't see how good they had it in you. But to erode the ability of the incoming premier to do her job, put aside if you like her or not. You know, when John F. Kennedy had the botched Bay of Pigs invasion, he was talking to Dwight D. Eisenhower, his predecessor, and Eisenhower, private conversations on how to handle these critical foreign and military matters. The two were in different parties, but they both understood that America needed to win in the Cold War. Nothing was more serious. The idea, presidents do this all the time. In fact, sometimes I think it shocks voters to see how collegial ex-presidents can be. But to have a loser mentality, an angry, sore loser, refuse to brief Danielle Smith coming in, and then undermine her as if we want to use oil as a blackmail tool. Like, give me 30 more seconds on this. How exactly would that work? These oil companies have contracts, decades-long contracts, to serve U.S. refineries. So are you going to order a company not to pump oil? Like, are you physically going to turn, like, who's going to turn off the pipe? And on what basis? And what are you going to do when those refineries sue you? And for astounding damages. But do you think that a strategic asset that is specifically covered in the USMCA, in fact, there's a special section of the USMCA right now that predates, it goes back to the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, that the United States gets preferential access to our oil over others. You're going to cut them off? And how do you think the United States is going to react to that legally, politically? But more than that, what will the banking world, what will the financial world, so you're gone full Venezuela. You're effectively nationalizing the oil and gas. When you say you cannot sell to him, you cannot sell to her, do you think that will be met, not just with political impunity, but who would ever invest again in a place where contracts mean nothing, the rule of law means nothing, the Constitution means nothing, promises mean nothing? Jason Kenney would shut off oil to the United States as explicitly as a blackmail tool for the benefit of a prime minister who threw a deal away because he wants to be known as Captain Canada. It makes no sense other than, who is Jason Kenney now? Because I thought I knew who he was 20 years ago when he was a cabinet minister in Stephen Harper. I thought he was the Taxpayers Federation guy. I thought he was the religious freedoms guy. And then I got to know a different Jason Kenney when he started putting pastors in jail during COVID. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. And now we have the champion of the oil patch and small government say, no, I want to nationalize the oil patch to command them to stop sending oil to our 99% customer, or about 90% customer. Forgive the rant, but it's gross.
Well, we got to look at some of the motivation, possibly. I'm reading in, but we got to remember Jason Kenney got a very bad political black eye over the Keystone when he pumped 1.5 billion Albertan tax dollars into that to guarantee it, to try and get it across the line, which ended up vanishing when Joe Biden shut it down. Could it be that there's even a little envy that he just doesn't want to think, well, I don't want to see another premier get this done when I couldn't manage it while I was in?
That's exactly it, Cory. He's being petty and bitter because she's doing a better job than him. Because by not ensuring that there was an organized transition of power between, like, this changes everything, Ezra, this story that you just told me, because that shows a serious disinterest by Jason Kenney to keep serving the people of Alberta, in that he would not cooperate with her during the transition. That just shows that he has contempt for the people of Alberta. And this might be pettiness and bitterness that's left over from that time. And I think we're on to something there.
I'll bet you $1 that he has not spoken to her since she became premier. In fact, I might check on that.
Lucky Danielle Smith, if that's
but
the
imagine
case.
the audacity, the chutzpah of saying, I am going to make proposals. And he identifies as a political leader, doesn't he? He expresses as a political leader, but he leads no one other. I'm just so curious of who his clients are, because or maybe I checked and there are no Senate seats open in Alberta, so he can't be gunning for that. But I've never seen such an obsequious cheerleader for Mark Carney, and that's fine. I don't begrudge a man his personal political peccadillos, but he is giving his blessing to the Venezuelization of Alberta's oil patch, and Saskatchewan too. Saskatchewan has a lot of oil. That's why the Keystone XL pipeline goes over Saskatchewan to pick up that oil from the Bakken Formation, go down to North Dakota.
I have a piece brewing, and it's called Saskatchezuela. Ezra, okay? Because this is happening too on the NDP side, who would like nothing more than for our oil and gas sector to tank in that way too. So it would be an interesting look at what would happen if we went full communist with our oil and gas.
Can
and
I
I
just
think we're
jump in
getting
here
a
for a
sneak
sec?
peek. Yes, please.
We're not getting a sneak peek. This is who Jason Kenney has been for quite some time. In 2018, he colluded with the NDP to support their production cuts, which unemployed people and artificially jacked up the price of oil. So he was perfectly fine with that. It's funny now that he's all Mr. Anti-Supply Management for milk, but he was all for supply management for oil and gas. And just to answer Ezra's question, do they need to just turn off the taps if they really want to use Alberta's oil and our jobs as some sort of bargaining chip because Doug Ford can't keep his mouth shut? It doesn't have to be that way. I noticed this tweet from our friend Keith Wilson, who is very smart on this subject. And he is astute. So he points out that there's still a Pierre Trudeau era power on the books that Ottawa can use to impose an export charge of up to $55 a barrel on Alberta oil shipped to the United States. So they would export tariff it out the door. Instead of turning off the taps to inflate the price headed to the Americans. Now, all this does in the long term is make our oil completely uninviting to the Americans who now have access to Venezuelan heavy oil, which their refineries are perfectly tooled to deal with.
You know, imagine you're a worker in oil. So if those pipelines were cut off, well, you don't want to keep filling them then. I mean, there's a certain amount of storage, but, you know, it's not like people talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the United States, which is essentially an enormous underground caverns, actually, in which they store it because the U.S., it produces an enormous amount of oil, but it exports and Canada is always in a surplus for oil, at least the West. So we don't have these huge storage facilities. We don't have 2 million barrels a day worth of place to put the oil. We don't. So immediately, if some Hugo Chavez wannabe cut off the pipelines to the States, immediately, within days, there would be literally no place to put it. And so they would stop production. And imagine stopping production at $100 billion worth of capital investment. Imagine shutting those things down. And then what are you going to do with the men? You're just going to pay them to do nothing? Pay them with what money? Because you stopped selling to the refineries. Like, it's so absurd. It's so shocking. It is tantamount to nationalizing the banks and then expecting to be part of the world financial system. Like, it's so insane on the face of it that either Jason Kenney actually doesn't mean it and he's just lying, or he's lost all his faculties, and the man who once ran the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has gone mad. And maybe it's a bit of both, I don't know, but I think he actually believes that he can take another crack at being the Premier of Alberta, or more likely, he sees himself as the man to come in, help push out Pierre Poilievre, or maybe let Cory Janaik and Doug Ford take the lead on that. And then being the leader of the federal Conservatives, saying, I'm the one who slayed the separatist demon. I'm the one who, I don't know. I mean, I think he is willing to sell out Alberta to become the Conservative leader who can then say to Ontario and the Atlantic, I sold out Alberta. I'm not one of those anti-COVID crazies. I'm not one of those separatist crazies. I'm not one of those oil patch cowboy crazies. I undid my own people for you. Now make me prime minister. He's always wanted to be prime minister.
It's almost like the beginning of his villain origin story, Ezra.
It's just a sad end for a guy that, really respected the Jason of the 1990s, and he did a lot of great work with Reform Party and in Parliament. And it's just, I think, being too long in Ottawa, it damages the brain, and his personal ambition now is outdoing, has overcome his belief in doing what's best for the province that he used to be the premier of. It's a sad thing to watch, actually.
I know that we need to hit an ad break because Cory has to get back to his job over at the Western Standard. And I think Ezra's got to get back to his normal job here at Rebel News. Cory, let people know how they can find you and also support your third-party advertiser, because you are the sign man out there.
Certainly. Well, also that fact check, man, early in the morning has been fun and great working on those, though, as tiring as it is. So, I mean, be sure to go to albertafactcheck.com where we can cut through that BS every morning. You can also find me at Western Standard and CoryMorgan.com for the independence, Pathway to Independence stuff.
Great. Cory, thank you so much. Thanks, boss.
Thanks, guys.
For jumping on the show today. Olivia, let's hit an ad break and we'll come back on the other side.
For generations, many Canadians have preserved more than just firearms.
Many of our men and women
They've preserved history, tradition, competition, memories. But under Trudeau, and now Carney, heirlooms, estates, collectibles, and competition firearms now have to be surrendered and destroyed. While violent gun criminals get pass after pass, openly ignoring any legislation, lawful gun owners are trapped in an increasingly unfair legal system. But we can help. Canada's National Firearms Association's Save Firearms program offers the legal pathway to preserve what matters, while we work towards a political solution. Don't let yours be next. Save history. Save heritage. Save firearms. Visit nfa.ca today to learn more.
In Canada, firearms owners like me understand the importance of safe, effective self-defense options. That's why we're proud to have Byrna as a sponsor. Byrna's less lethal launchers are designed to help protect you and your family without taking a life. Byrna offers peace of mind, accessibility, and a practical layer of personal security for Canadians who value safety. Learn more at byrna.ca/rebel. That's BYRNA.ca/rebel.
Hey folks, do you love a good cup of coffee? Are you, like me, banned for life from visiting Tim Hortons? Well,
no, we're not. No, not everybody is.
Not everybody.
Just you and me.
But I am. Folks, I have great news. Check it out. This is Rebel News Special Edition Coffee. Rebel News and Resistance Coffee have partnered to bring you something special to wake up to. Resistance Coffee is a family-run Canadian coffee company, unlike Tim Hortons, by the way. And while the big chains wrap themselves in the flag and turn their backs on Canadian workers, Resistance Coffee has been doing the real thing all along, available only at rebelcoffee.ca. A 5-pound bag and bundles qualify for a $9.99 flat rate shipping nationwide. It is worth every penny. Folks, this is great coffee, and this is the coffee to brew. Rebel News.
Oh, all right. Olivia, I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to try to finish up some of the trade talk stuff, and then I want to get into, of course, Dolly Parton passing, and then crazy people using it to, I don't know, attack their political enemies. She was the least political person purposefully. She would never say which way she leaned politically, and she refused, and actually, for the nicest person on the face of the earth, she got real prickly with people who kept asking her that question. I think Yankee might have put it in Slack somewhere yesterday, if we were able to show that clip. Let's go to David Cameron. No, CBC's David Common, not David Cameron. So the video says he's saying the quiet part out loud. What's the real motivation here? And you should know that there is a Democrat staffer working for Mark Carney.
Wild.
And nobody seems to be talking about it. So it seems to me that they're doing their best to undermine Trump in the midterm elections. I don't think
excuse me, in the lead up to the midterms. Yes, that's exactly what they are doing.
Okay, so let's show that clip of CBC's David Common saying the quiet part out loud.
Map out a lot about where that pressure is coming from. Take a look at the map that shows which states are facing an outsized impact. Look, for instance, at Michigan or Iowa. The darker the color, the more the impact. And these are two states in particular where Senate races in those midterm elections are very, very close, where Trump's control over Washington will ultimately be decided by those November midterms. Let's drill down into the states themselves. Iowa, we do a lot of farm machinery trade with Iowa. Total value $6.5 billion. This impacts about close to 10% of the trade. If we move on to our next state, we are looking at Texas, big state. Not a huge percentage, but a very large value. And of course, plastics as well as fossil fuels, generally a big part of Canada's trade. Let's move on now to Maine. Lobster goes there for processing, or rather comes to Canada for processing. And so it is a major percentage of the impact. And counter tariffs appear to be meant to weaken the Republicans' tentative hold on the Senate seat there. Let's turn to Michigan. Border state, closely tied to Canada's auto industry, to the integrated auto industry. Again, significant percentage. Trump's tariffs already costing U.S. automakers billions of dollars. Canada's retaliation will add to that. Lastly, let's look at Ohio. It is a key swing state. Trump promises to use tariffs to bring back steel and heavy industry jobs. He claims it is key to his hold on the state. Canada targeting that. Speaking of Ohio, let's bring in Marianne, who's been looking much more closely at some of the political implications of what can be a bellwether in U.S. political circles.
Yeah, so to really drive home this message that for Ohio, Canada is its largest international trade partner. exporting billions of goods north of the border, as you noted, particularly when it comes to manufacturing and even agriculture. But with the midterm elections just coming up, they are potentially going to see a sway in votes because the tariffs a huge issue there, particularly for those workers in those industrial areas. To give everyone a sense of background, this is a red state. It is traditionally a Republican stronghold. President Trump won there for the last 3 elections. Its governor and senators all Republican. But the hope for the Democrats is that as workers there start to feel that pain when it comes to the prices and the job impact there, as they start to feel really the effects of Canada's counter tariffs, they could tap into that, potentially flip the state.
I mean, as you know, Ohio is so critical to the auto industry. Trump has been quite popular among some in the state in saying, no, we're going to bring all that auto manufacturing back into the United States. But generally, now that there are tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, the threat of reciprocal tariffs, where do things stand for Ohioan?
So if you think I'm crazy that the Liberals are colluding with the Democrats in the lead up to the midterm election,
Yes,
I
they are.
am not. I want to show you this article from the Niagara Independent. And ask yourself why this wasn't reported in the mainstream media. We talked about it at the time. Mark Carney's Web of American Democrat Political Advisors. Okay. Earlier last week, news trickled out that the Globe and Mail was given a scoop that the Prime Minister had promoted a staff member to a newly made position. So he created a position for this person within the PMO to replace a key advisor.
Correct. This position had never, ever, ever existed in Canada before this.
Yes.
Guys, this is unprecedented.
Yes. And so he moved the person who was sort of doing this job, but not in this newly named position, into the Senate. So you have to like give a patronage appointment. It's not like this guy was being fired. They wanted to move a Democrat operative into it. Maya Johnson. So it's reflective of her senior role in corporate management structure. And all of these jobs are already done by somebody else. And the thing is, Johnson has close ties to Hillary Clinton and served as her director of scheduling in her 2016 presidential campaign against, guess who? Donald Trump. She also worked in the subsequent Democrat presidential campaigns of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Yep.
And she had a role in the political data and strategy management company Hawkfish, an extension of former New York City mayor and Democrat presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg. Hawkfish supported Democrat candidates and organizations in the 2020 American election cycle. Also, she also worked with Carney's other racket, G fans. So there's that. And then we've got
this is a person who is so laden with conflicts of interest across the border that no sane or rational Canadian could look at her CV and think, yeah, this is a good fit to represent Canadians. This is a nearly overt political posturing is what it is to sort of interfere in the US midterms. And this is, I can't see any world in which President Trump would be okay with this.
Yes. But we're not done yet.
Because they lost in the States. Now they're advancing all of those terrible ideas through the government of Canada.
Right.
This is awful for us. This is awful.
They're using Canada's foreign policy and trade issues to attack Trump from inside of Canada. This is foreign interference, you guys. And then we've got Liberal MP Anthony Housefather. He was recently seen in Florida helping Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Democrat crazy person, campaign for Congress. So when these Liberals say, we reject American-style politics, they're quite literally doing American-style politics with Americans, either inside the Prime Minister's office or actually on the ground in Florida. And doing it in our faces.
That's quite a collaboration right there that we're seeing, guys. A Canadian member of Parliament openly campaigning for a Democratic candidate in Florida. This is wild.
Against the Trump administration. this trade war has really given the COVID mask snarky people, the snitches of your Christmas gatherings.
1,000,000,000%.
They've really grasped onto the trade war with
Yep.
both hands.
Yep.
It's the same people,
Because-
right? It's
because
the same
they-
people
it-
yelling at you about not
it-
following the lines in the grocery store. They've got their elbows up t-shirt on now.
It allows them to continue their sense of superiority over the rest of us. They've just pivoted their COVID talking points to tariff talking points. And if you think that our old, we'll call them vintage Canadians, older Canadians, aren't falling for this and this constant messaging coming out of the MSM, you're nuts. You're nuts. Like this is craziness. We have, here we supposedly elected a senior expert negotiator, an economist who is absolutely ruining the country, and it looks like on purpose, against our closest friends and neighbors in the United States. And I think that this just underscores the point that people north of the border and people south of the border should continue valuing their relationships, because what happens in America impacts us. What happens in Canada impacts them. And we should be concentrating wholly on a North American alliance over what's happening, bringing in China, say. You know what I mean? What do we want more? A North American alliance where we're a world superpower, where we get to retain our traditions and our customs and our way of doing things? Or are we literally throwing open our economies and our borders to foreign concepts that look and appear not to be working in other places? Like, we have to decide whose team we're on. And I'm always going to be on the team of my neighbors. Okay.
Yeah.
My Bible instructs me that I will love my neighbors. Americans are my neighbors. The end.
Yeah.
This is juvenile. This is juvenile, and playing with many, many people's livelihoods on both sides of the border. And we need to get to an agreement. And I think where there's a will, there's a way. And I believe that some people have a will. And we're just gonna hope that they can fix this mess that both countries are in.
Moreover, to my point on the snitch culture, back at her with a vengeance, we've got this story out of Kemptville, near Ottawa, and CTV did a story on it. So remember the snitch culture of COVID? How could we forget? Was really ramped up by the mainstream media. It wasn't enough that you had some busybody neighbor minding your business as well as theirs, but the mainstream media was elevating these snitches to some sort of moral superiority over you because they blindly followed government edicts. Well, American wine spotted at Kemptville grocer as, my lord, get him.
No.
Get them. As the federal government encourages people to buy Canadian, many were surprised. Who's many, by the way? Like 4 people who posted on Facebook how atrocious it is. Don't buy it then. Leave this guy alone. Keep walking.
You can just keep walking through the store and follow your list. If American wine wasn't on your list, you can just pass that whole display by and keep going to what you do want. But for CTV to dedicate actual resources to go investigate this, I don't know if you guys saw my piece about what happened at the Sandra Schmirler Leisure Center, but this is the difference between independent media and mainstream. Okay, the CTV is sending out major resources to report on this absolutely unthinkable American wine. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, we're catching creeps, okay, over here in the independent media. And this is an affront to Canadians. This is an affront. Let them decide. This is not newsworthy. And I would be interested to know from that independent grocer, how many people picked it up because it was a great price and the bottle looked nice. Okay, this is how I make all my wine decisions. Is the bottle nice? Will I like this later tonight? Okay, you should leave it up to customers. If the market will decide, if people want California wine. And it turns out that I do. right
Yes.
now, as a matter of fact. Thank you so much.
And you can get it like crazy here in Alberta and Saskatchewan because we didn't pull American booze off our shelves to irritate the Americans for some reason.
I'm looking to partner with American wineries, okay, on product reviews. Because I live in Canada. It's a coping mechanism, we'll say.
We've got David Eby over in British Columbia saying that we shouldn't travel to the United States for holiday. Let's watch.
Okay.
Obviously, we've seen another attack from the United States. And again, I'm asking British Columbians, if you have a choice, please don't travel to the United States. Choose another place to do your tourism. If you can choose a Canadian product instead of an American one, please choose it. Right now, Canadian workers from coast to coast to coast need our support. With 50% tariffs imposed by the president on many products, by being our own best customer, we can help respond and support Canadians in every corner of this amazing country we call home.
How long till we're snitching on people because they sashayed into Bellingham to get some cheap cheese? Like, I think this is where this goes. And by the way, who can afford to go to the United States right now? Our dollar is tumbling like crazy.
Exactly this. And he's going to use, like, they'll use those statistics, those border crossing statistics or whatever. This percentage fewer Canadians are crossing the border into the United States, right? Because nobody can afford to live anymore, guys. Remember when back in the olden days, not too terribly long ago, where we could just putz over the border and we could spend our dollars dollar for dollar, and we just have access to a whole world of products that we don't have in Canada because of supply management. Remember how great that was, you guys? If I could afford to go to the United States, I'd go today. And I will say, I'm jealous of every person I know that gets to go to the United States right now.
We got a buddy in the United States at this moment. Our third.
Yes,
she's there.
Oh, and she has been so heavy on my mind because as Dolly Parton. Our friend Tara, we can just send a quick shout out today. Big love to Tara, who is grieving the loss of Dolly Parton in the United States. So
yes, she's there right now.
You, babe. Yeah.
Speaking of Dolly Parton, Toronto Star reports that Olivia Chow, Canada's most embarrassing mayor, who dresses like a drag queen cabaret star for most of the summer. She went on TV and said that Trump should be like Dolly Parton and love thy neighbor. How embarrassing. Why does she do these things?
Olivia, something else Dolly Parton said is that people should work 9 to 5, Olivia Chow. And we see you at those pride parades. We see you at Carnival. And maybe you should take Dolly's advice to pour yourself a cup of ambition when you stumble into the kitchen. Okay, don't take the wildest thing Dolly said and apply it to Donald Trump. It's not nice. She just died.
Well,
like, don't.
Let's watch this.
President Trump is taunting Canada, saying he wants to rename Lake Ontario Lake America. What do you make of that threat?
Look, it's not a very neighborly thing to do. We're supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves. My brother, my cousins are all Americans. We are so tied economically, and you get the best deal from oil, lumber, and auto parts. So to do this kind of senseless, brutal attack, why? There's absolutely no reason. And I think Mr. Trump should take a page from Dolly Parton. She's loving, she's generous, she's joyous. That's the way to treat your best neighbor and your friends, not just bullying. And that's not who we are. And that's why we have to retaliate in order to defend ourselves and protect ourselves with the $28 billion counter tariffs.
Get Dolly's name out of your mouth, Olivia.
Not to go too Will Smith on you. but get her name out your mouth.
Yeah. Donald Trump has the flags at half-staff to honor Dolly. One of the last people who is, yes, one of the last people who is universally loved by everybody, the left and the right. Incredible amount of charity work. I think in her final days, even as she knew she was fighting cancer of her own, she was doing charity work for children with cancer. But just for those people who want to politicize Dolly Parton, she refused to allow people to do that to her. Olivia, would you mind showing this so that politicians could quit politicizing her, and also let this be a lesson for the musicians of today?
I'm not being political. I don't do politics. I'm not getting into any of that because I have a lot of fans out there and I don't want to offend anybody. And besides, I just don't get into that. And so if you are deciding you may want to ask me something more serious, don't, because I'm not going to answer.
Fair warning. Okay.
I'm not going to. I mean, yeah.
I might still ask.
Well, you can ask, but I might still tell you where to put it if I don't like where you got it.
We have a president of the United States who said those things on that bus.
I'm not addressing that. I do not get into that. Of course, I have my opinion about everybody and everything. But I learned a long time ago, keep your damn mouth shut if you want to stay in show business. I'm not in politics. I'm an entertainer.
And yet, you're also a role model.
Yes, I am. That's why I don't talk about people.
Exactly. Olivia Chow.
Yeah, beautiful. She really was a gifted storyteller in so many ways, whether it was through her songs or through her stories or through the work that she did that nobody saw. She was an ardent supporter of women in creative spaces. Okay, she invested heavily into young women and their potential. She believed that reading was the way out of poverty. Remember that Dolly Parton came from very, very modest beginnings. And she believed that childhood literacy was the way out of poverty. And of course, she was right. She did a lot of good work in this life. And just like she said there, she stayed out of things that she stayed in her lane. And not only did she stay in her lane, she paved that lane for so many other girls. And for our friend Tara, okay, and everybody that's feeling the world is a little less buxom today. Our condolences. Yeah, she was a special lady.
Yep. Imagination Library is what she did.
Yeah, she gave away millions of books to children.
Yeah,
I mean, I wonder who inspired me to start writing children's books. It might have been Dolly Parton.
Yep. Let's do the chats and then we'll do the cringe. The cringe comes to us by way of Mark Carney a couple of days ago, but you weren't on the stream and I didn't want to talk about it without you. Jess in GP gives us $13.99, says Sheila and Lise, my daily delight. Oh, thank you.
Doll. Thanks, doll.
And politicians never lie. $5.02. Globalist vision requires a very weak and vulnerable Canada. Everything Carney does points to this end. Yes.
Correct. Absolutely correct. He needs an entire population of people who aren't really informed.
Yes,
you know?
It's true. And too economically downtrodden to fight back. Too concerned with putting food on the table and just keeping your mortgage afloat to pay attention to everything else.
Surviving. Yeah.
Okay, the daily cringe comes to us by way of Mark Carney, as I said. 2 days ago? Yeah, it's the 26th. First of all, condolences to this person's family. But I reserve the right to be critical of the things that she did in her life. Barbara Findley, all lowercase, because that's how she insisted people spell her name. She was a lawyer, an LGBTQ lawyer. She dedicated her life to making Canada a freer, more equal place where to SLGBTQI+, we forgot the A, Mark, you're going to get a human rights complaint, could live with dignity. She challenged injustice, changed minds. Oh, I think she hardened a lot of people and opened doors for those who came after her. My thoughts are with everyone who knew her, admired her, and was changed by her work. The second I read that Barbara Findley, an LGBTQ activist lawyer, had passed, immediately I was like, she died by maid. Guess what? died by maid.
No.
After an illness, fibromyalgia is what she had. So for those of you who don't know who Barbara Findlay is and why the prime minister of this country is celebrating the death of a lawyer, renowned queer lawyer activist Barbara Findlay, who insisted her name be spelled in all lowercase, dead at 77. But a brief rundown of what Barbara Findlay did during her time as a lawyer. When they say she's an activist lawyer, yeah. So the Vancouver Rape Relief, the Vancouver Rape Crisis Center, that was forced to permit biological men into their rape crisis center. Guess who did that?
Yeah, that was Barbara Findlay.
That was Barbara Findlay.
Amy Ham, BC midwife, who has been through the absolute ringer because she maintains that only women can be women. Barbara Findlay raked her over the coals, tried to ruin her life. And if we're wondering, how we got here in 2026 with where we find ourselves in the world on LGBTQ issues, Barbara Findlay laid the crazy groundwork going back to the 1970s. Sheila, Gunn, Reid, and I did a bunch of research quite some time ago, actually, about
a year and a half.
Yeah, about how we've devolved to this place in Canada. And Barbara Findlay was at the heart of so much of that, being an activist lawyer.
And she built the snowball and then she rolled it down the hill and watched it pick up more and more and more snow. For example, in 2016, she was involved in the lawsuit against Trinity Western. Trinity Western is a private Christian university who made students sign a community covenant prohibiting same-sex sexual intimacy. She was responsible for making sure that law societies deny accreditation to the university's otherwise qualified law program. She sued the Knights of Columbus in 2005, a fraternal organization of Catholic men, because they denied the use of one of their facilities, which was, ostensibly built using or purchased using funds raised from parishioners. She made them rent it to a same-sex couple for their wedding reception. Bake the cake, bigots. She was doing it before anybody else. Transgender inmate medical rights and housing cases. If you wonder why these sex offenders can go and get some bolt-on boobs and then get themselves into female prisons, you look directly at Barbara Findlay for that. And of course, the Amy Ham disciplinary hearing, where they absolutely did their best to destroy Amy Ham's life for her completely sane views online.
Yeah. And so here we have Canada, a prime minister who believes that men can become women and that the harms that are being done to women under the auspices of 2S LGBTQIA rights in Canada. It's my opinion that if a man doesn't know that a man can't become a woman, he's not fit to lead. Because if he can't tell that one universal truth, okay, that there are two sexes, that you can never change, well, why are we thinking that he is the guy that could fix the economy, something as complicated as the economy? If you can get a base truth wrong, be willing to lie about a base truth, what is it that you won't lie about, Mark Carney? This is gross, and this is unbecoming of a prime minister to I don't want to say platform somebody, because that's not right. She's dead. You know what I mean? Like, he's not platforming her, but to endorse her work, which is viewed as so damaging to Canadian society, is really reprehensible. It's really, he could have said nothing. Let her friends and family. But this is I mean, this is just grotesque. It's grotesque.
She forced association with religious groups. She forced these religious groups to enter into contracts with people they didn't want to do. If you enter into a contract with someone you don't want to do business with, guess what that's called? Slavery. She violated the conscience rights of people like Amy Ham. She diminished the sex-based physical protections of rape survivors. And Lisa's right. She's a human being. She's got family who love her. Let them grieve. Where was it for the prime minister to weigh in?
Inappropriate.
Completely.
Well, I mean, but are we surprised?
Well, I mean, it's signaling something sinister.
Yep, sure is.
We got 2 more chats here. iGrocket gives us $10. Ladies, here are some more US dollars for you. Much love from Texas, USA. Maybe you can get a nice bottle of American wine.
Thank you. I'm gonna right after this. Okay, right
what
after
is that?
this.
Like 16 Canadian pesos? Is that what
Yes.
$10 US works out to be?
A little bit less, I think. A little bit
About
less.
15?
But yeah, but that's okay. Listen, I'm gonna get a fine bottle of American wine for $15. That's my upper limit on wine amounts. Okay, that's a great bottle of wine for me. So yeah, done, buddy. Thank you so much for sponsoring this afternoon for me personally. I need it. Thank you.
It's because you're putting her back in volume. You gotta watch it. Sasquatch Chronicles gives us $9.99. Also, if I recall correctly, in American. If the deal would have made the Trump administration look bad, Mark Carney would have released it yesterday, but he won't. Just joined the stream. Terrible service at Lake America, but this place is awesome.
Listen, can we just suggest the idea of Lake North America? Because I'm real interested in North American supremacy. Can we talk about that, guys? Let me know. North America, that lake. It just sounds good. I like it. Anything other than Lake Ontario at this point.
Think of the mindset, too, of a Canadian government that is more willing to do business with China that uses slave labor than to do business with Americans who have the Constitution, which is probably the second greatest document outside of the Bible that was ever written. It's a restraining order against the government, and recognizes that your rights are to be protected by the government, but do not come from the government, but rather from the creator of all things. I think that's the show for today.
Yeah, who do we want to be in bed with, guys? Who do we want to be in bed with?
Yeah.
I know that, I like making a bed with my American friends and neighbors. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the Canadian government won't shut up about human rights and human rights all over the world, blah, 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 blah. Why don't you do a trade deal with a country that respects human rights?
Correct.
And instead of the one that doesn't. I think we got to wrap up the show. I have a meeting to get into. Lise, I believe you're on the stream tomorrow.
Am I?
I think you are. We did the old switcheroo for Tuesday.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
It will now. Yeah, okay, I'll see you
perfect.
guys tomorrow. I was ready to sign off for the week, but I will see you on Thursday. I'll see you Thursday.
Perfect.
Yeah, tomorrow. Okay, deal.
Thanks for joining the show. Special thanks to Cory Morgan from the Western Standard, and of course the big boss Ezra Levant for jumping on the show. Olivia, thanks for putting everything together for us. And those of you who pitched in a little bit to keep the lights on here at Rebel News and who interact with our comment or our content, that's very helpful. Gets us higher in the algorithms. Helps us change the hearts and minds of people when we are able to tell more people the other side of the story. And as we frequently say on the show here, if you find us offensive, maybe don't find us at all.
I've got a big announcement. Rebel News Live is back this fall, and we're coming to 3 cities: Calgary, Vancouver, and Toronto. Rebel News Live will be in Calgary on Saturday, October 31st at the Carriage House Hotel and Conference Center. Then we're heading to Vancouver on Saturday, November 14th, and then on to Toronto on Saturday, November 21st at Canada Christian College in Whitby. 3 cities, 3 incredible days, and I want to see you there. Now, if you've never been to one of our live events before, let me tell you what it's like, because I genuinely believe there's nothing else like it in Canada. We've been doing these gatherings for years, and every single time without fail, the thing people tell me afterwards, the thing they remember most isn't any particular speech, as good as the speeches are. It's the feeling in the room. It's walking in and realizing you are surrounded by hundreds of Canadians who think the way you think, who care about the things you care about, who've been watching the same stories you've been watching and asking the same questions you've been asking. People who have felt, frankly, a little bit alone in their communities and who suddenly realize they are not alone at all. That is what Rebel News Live is. It's a convention. It's a family reunion of sorts. It's a day where you get to be yourself completely without apology. And once you've experienced it, you keep coming back. Our attendees know what I mean. We have regulars. Now, who's going to be there this fall? I'll be there. Sheila Gunn Reid will be there. Tamara Leach will be there. And the Rebel News team will be joining us. Over the coming weeks, we'll be announcing some additional very special guest speakers. And trust me, you're going to want to hear who's coming. Stay tuned. Here's what the day looks like. Doors open at 8 in the morning with a light breakfast. Then a full slate of speeches and panel discussions, the kind of conversations you would never see on the CBC. Catered lunch, more speakers in the afternoon, and for VIP ticket holders, an exclusive dinner with me, Sheila, Tamara, and our guests at the end of the night. And in between all that, we've got a full merchandise store on site, Rebel News toques and hoodies and mugs and books. And yes, I will be there to sign them, and we'll have other sponsors and exhibitor booths from some of the best freedom-oriented businesses and organizations in the country, people you want to know about, causes worth supporting, and groups doing the real work on the issues that matter. It's worth showing up early to spend some time at those booths before the speeches begin. It's the best gathering of freedom-minded Canadians anywhere in the country. I've been saying that for years, and I keep saying it because it keeps being true. Now, I need to be straight with you about one thing. These events sell out every single year without exception. If you wait too long, you will not get in. I've seen it happen. I don't want it to happen to you. So here's what I need you to do right now. Go to rebelnewslive.com and get your tickets at the early bird price, because that price will not be around forever. Calgary on October 31st, Vancouver on November 14th, Toronto on November 21st. Pick your city, pick your date, and get your seats locked in before they're gone. There's nothing quite like spending a full day in a room full of Canadians who actually get it, people who've been watching, who've been following along, who are in this fight with us. I'll see you there. Go to rebelnewslive.com. Get your tickets at the early bird